Presented by Horns and Hooves Entertainment, you're watching Bob Hansen, Sean O'Malley, Rob Hazu, Tom Buchak, and Adam Fitzgerald. You still up? Live. It's Buffalo After Dark.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is February 24th, and we have a really fun show for you. And this is actually something we've been wanting to do for a long time. So before I introduce our guests of the night, Bobby, Trevor, Adam, how are you guys doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good. It's nice to have all of us here again in an actual nice warm day here in Buffalo.
Well, I got little Timmy with me tonight.
Little Timmy. I'm doing great. Tom. As you know, I just came off of doing an interview on my podcast with the Michael Waltrip, so I'm pretty happy about that. 2-time Daytona 500 winner.
Very nice. And anyone who hasn't had a chance to check it out, definitely feel free. But what I want to do is I want to turn it over to our guest for the show today. And this is 1989 NHL draft pick, former Sabre Center, also spent time with the Dallas Stars, Chicago Blackhawks, and the Philadelphia Flyers. Current University of Minnesota-Duluth associate head coach, Derek Plante. Derek, it is great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. This is kind of exciting. I don't know if I've done a Zoom on Facebook Live and stuff, so this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
excited.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have you on. We really appreciate your time. I know we've had a chance to talk a little bit off air, and absolutely we're happy to have you. And we've got some things we'd love to talk about with your career and your playing days, also your current coaching stint, and then we also have some fan questions for you too. So what I would love to do is start out and talk about your days when you were with the Bulldogs, University of Minnesota-Duluth, and one of the big things that you're known for is the NCAA leading 92 points when you earned your WCHA regular season title and you had your berth in the NCAA regionals. So during your playing days at that time, what were some of the things that you always did to perform at a top level?
Well, I was kind of a rink rat, so I'd spend a lot of time on the ice. A lot of the stuff I did, I was, practicing with the hopes that I could maybe go on and play past college. And I think that was a great environment for me to grow and get bigger. I was kind of a later maturing kid, so I was still growing. I grew another inch and put on about 25 pounds in college. So it was really important for me to go there. But we had, I wouldn't say unlimited ice time, but we had a lot of ice time available. So I would probably spend an extra hour every day before practice just shooting pucks and working on different parts of the game. So that was really beneficial for me to be in that environment where I could, play with some good players. I was lucky to play with some really good players. So that whole experience was a really fun experience, and probably where my game came into its own for a lot of parts, just because I was still growing, got a lot stronger, got faster, and kind of came into a player that without college, I probably would have never made it to Buffalo.
Wow. That is quite the amputation. But so my question to you, Mr. Plante, is that every NHL player wants to be drafted into the big boys. And obviously you were one of those guys that got drafted into the NHL, drafted by the Sabres, which is a dream. But being drafted in the NHL is always an honor and a privilege, and that's just experiencing among anybody for the dreaming perspective. But tell us what your draft experience was like on the night you were drafted into the NHL.
Okay, so I got kind of a weird, kind of goofy story because, well, one, like in Minnesota, we don't think of pro hockey like that wasn't really the North Stars, but like literally like nobody from our area really played that much NHL. So for our big goal, first I was a really small kid, like I was still like maybe 5'1" when I was in 10th grade. So like the draft and playing the NHL was not really like, I love the NHL, but it wasn't on TV like it was all the time now. So it wasn't like I got to see it every day. I got to watch once in a while the North Star games. But the biggest goal for me is first to play for my high school team and then play at college. And then even when I went to college, there's a lot of people in the area say that there's no chance I'd ever play there because I was too small. So the funny part about that is I did get drafted. So I'm kind of curious. I can't remember the guy's name that actually put his ego or his reputation on the line to get me drafted, because when I got drafted, I was like 5'9", 145, 150 pounds. And like maybe that seems fine in today's game, but at that time, kids that size just weren't playing. So whoever took a chance on me, it was pretty crazy. But what was I doing on that draft day? So it's kind of funny you say that because my dad actually was a scout for the Minnesota North Stars, and it happened to be that the draft was in Minnesota that year, 1989. And what was I doing? I was mowing the grass. Like nobody clued me in that this is something that I should be going to, or that that was important to go to the draft. I just thought it was something that happened, and I never even thought about it, right? Like it would never cross my mind. So somebody called the house when I was out mowing the grass, and I came in the house. They put me through like 50 questions of, guess who drafted you? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And then they finally gave me the hint that it was blue and gold team, and I still couldn't get it. Like St. Louis Blues, and I'm like, so Buffalo's in like in my mind. I'm like, oh, Buffalo Sabres. I'm like, I had to go look up, and I knew Phil Housley had played there, so I'm like, because Phil Housley's kind of a legend. But then I had to go look and see where it was and look up the history of him and stuff. So again, it was a big deal to get drafted, but not such a big deal because for me, I was still in the process of hoping to get to play a college game because I got drafted before I went there. So it was quite an honor, but yet it was kind of a pipe dream at the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's always a huge honor. It's just kind of funny how you said, "Oh, I was mowing grass. I got drafted by the Sabres." Didn't even know about it.
I know. I still think it's funny that my dad didn't tell me like, yeah, we can go drive down there for the day, and I would have sat there for a really long time because it was like 181st pick, right? But
Yeah.
it would have still been fun to see the experience and go through it. Since it was in Minnesota, I wouldn't have had to fly anywhere. But different time, I guess. Different time.
I'm just trying to picture that. Like, hey, the Sabres are on the phone, or someone's on the phone. Hey, this is the Sabres. We want to draft you. Yeah, nice try. Hang up. Keep mowing the grass. Oh, no.
Right. They didn't even come and get me while I was on the phone. They just let me cut the grass and then told me after.
Well, yeah. About the grass first.
I know. So, quite the experience. Then I later on, like I'd seen one of their scouts, and you always see these guys get hats and like shirts and whatnot, and so somehow someone called or whatever. I'm like, it'd be so cool to get a hat and stuff. So, about a month and a half, 2 months later, I got like an old foam crested hat and a little tight T-shirt, and yeah, that was it. Maybe a bag. I got a bag and a T-shirt and a hat.
Do you still have it?
No jersey. Yeah, I do. My kids wear it once in a while just to make fun of me. So.
That's quite the accomplishment. That's for sure.
Quite the accomplishment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got a question for you, being the resident Leafs fan here.
Yeah.
So when you were drafted by the Sabres, which is absolutely an honor to be drafted by any over the next few days and weeks and months, like what happened? Like what happened after joining them? Like,
yeah, well, so nothing, really nothing.
Really?
So to make the story even a little bit more fun is that, so I went to college and like that whole process happened, and I never really heard from the Sabres. It just wasn't like, it's kind of funny now to me mostly because the last 5 years I've been doing player development with the Chicago Blackhawks. So that's what I would do is once we draft a guy, I would spend most of my time kind of chasing our forwards around and just trying to help them become pros, right? And so at that time, that wasn't even a thing. Like nobody thought about that. And so I didn't really have contact with the Buffalo Sabres until after my senior year. I never really even had contact with them after the senior year. I went and tried out for the 94 Olympic team, and I made the team, and I was traveling around the Olympic team without even having conversations with Buffalo. And I hurt my knee, so I had to go back and get my knee scoped. I got my knee scoped, and then through my agent, we Buffalo reached out and said, hey, why don't you just come out? Because it was about training camp time. Come out, we'll check your knee, and we'll just, we'll see where you're at, right? So at that point, I hadn't had a contract, so they just wanted to see me skate. So I skated with a bunch of scouts and upper management that were old players, and so I was skating around, and this is where it gets a little bit funny for me, anyways. I'm skating around, and we're just doing some drills, and I'm kind of zipping around and whatnot, and they're talking. We stop for a drink of water, and they're talking. They're like, "Wow, you're pretty fast. Where did you play last year?" And this is like our head scouts, right? Like I was kind of taken back. Like, I mean, I was up for the Hobey Baker. It wasn't like I was a total like oblivious. Like I wasn't like doing nothing. Like NCAA is not as big at that point in a lot of management's eyes, but at the same time, our team was pretty good. We made it to the NCAAs. We made it to the final 8 teams. I had a good year. I was up for the Hobie Baker, and so he's like, "Where did you play again last year?" So it was a completely different scenario, right? And then they were like, "Wow, you're like," they just were impressed how fast I was. And I'm like, it's probably one of my better strengths anyway, that I can skate fast. And then so that happened, and a day later, Muckler said, "Well, do you want to sign and come play?" I'm like, "Sure." He said, "Well, we'll work it out with your agent. We'll figure it out. You go get a suit, and we're gonna hit on a plane to San Jose tomorrow." So I was out there to get checked out. I went out there with like maybe it was a little Bauer bag, just a little gym bag kind of thing, and I had my skates in there and 3 pairs of shorts, and I never went home. So I just stayed out there for the rest of the winter.
Yeah, traveling all around.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Derek, I got a question for you. So the NHL is, in my honest opinion, is the toughest sport of all time. Like, hands down, NFL's tough, but you see all these players in the playoffs taking shots, and they're playing through injuries all the time. So with that being said, what were some of your toughest NHL moments that you experienced during your NHL tenure?
Oh boy, I think that's a hard one, because I think it just seems like you're continuously injured in some. I shouldn't say injured. You're hurt a lot, right? Like we always say, like if you're injured, don't play. But if you're hurt, get back out there, right? That's just kind of our culture.
Play through the aches and pains.
Yeah, aches and pains, bruises, cuts. That shouldn't stop you. Yeah, unfortunately, I had a bad back probably for a long time. That was probably a real injury that I had to fight through for quite a while, and that gets back spasms once in a while, or just tense up, which is really frustrating. But I think probably the funniest, like, not injury but cut one I had. I played in New York one day, and like we used to wear the visor, right? And a lot of times when you get hit with the visor, it just like squashes your nose, and then usually I end up with a couple cuts here. But it just so happened in New York that happened, and I went back, and the guy stitched me up and put me back on the bench, but my nose was bleeding because they put those 2 big white things in your nose. And so I look up at the Jumbotron, and of course they keep showing me on the Jumbotron the 2 things hanging out of my nose. And then after the game, I get a call from my mom, who didn't really get, like, we didn't have satellite, like not all the games are on, but that one happened to be maybe on ESPN or whatever. So she calls me, she's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I saw you on TV and you had these things hanging out of your nose, there's blood." And it's like, so that was pretty crazy. And then, then I got a whole bunch of calls because the ESPN was kind of a big deal. So like a lot of people saw it. And even though that happened on a not nightly basis, but that happened quite often, but mostly nobody ever saw it. That was kind of a big deal. So it was a little bit of embarrassment just having the 2 white things hanging out my nose and having everybody know it.
I was gonna say, number one, that's very embarrassing that you're always on the Jumbotron and everyone's just looking at that, 19,000 people laughing at you. Number 2, I was shocked that you mentioned hockey on ESPN. So shocked.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah, the dude. It's been on ESPN for a while. Yeah, right.
It was who was it that used to do all the announcing? Was it Gary Thorne that did ESPN? Or was
Yeah,
that
Bill Clement and Gary Thorne. Yep.
Gary Thorne. Yeah, that's right. Like they had an ESPN deal. I was way too young to remember that.
The fact that he had to waste his career doing the Baltimore Orioles over the NHL is just sad these days.
That's what I'm saying, Bobby. That's exactly what I'm saying, man.
Right. But you never know, though, because now with NBCSN wrapping up at the end of like sometime this summer, I mean, ESPN, I guess, is back in the fold again to get some NHL games.
Yeah, there's so many new platforms, right? Like they have a lot of options.
Wherever it goes, Mike Tirico has to go there too. That dude is doing great filling in for Doc Emmerich. He's
doing a great job. Huh? He does a good. He's fun to listen to. And Edzo's just awesome dude, so he does a good job.
Oh, as long as it's not Pierre Maguire, I'm good.
Yes. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, I second that.
Freaking Pierre. Can't stand the guy, but what are you gonna do?
And he hates to leave, so like I hate the guy.
Oh, jeez.
I actually went to a Sabres game where he was in between the bench and Al Codoli hit his stick against his bald head.
Oh no.
Everybody saw it and was laughing. They showed the replay on the Jumbotron. Everyone's just laughing. That was the Karuba collision, I believe it was. Karuba collision of the game.
Karuba collision, yeah, that's right.
It was the stick going right into.
Is it still a Karuba collision? I think it's something else now. I was watching
Server.
TV.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Now it's Server collision. Got bought out.
I was watching with my boys the other day, and I think I had to crew a collision once in the playoffs. So I had to tell them that, like, I even hit somebody at least once. I hit somebody.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Right. I thought it was a big deal because it never happened for me.
Right, but you did get noticed on that one. So
Yeah,
it's
right.
all good.
Right. Crew a collision in the game.
Very big deal.
One time in 6 years.
One time.
Right. Didn't get shut out.
No, absolutely. Now, next question I do have for you are it's actually a two-part question. So the kind of piggyback off of what Trevor was asking, what were some of the best NHL moments that you had? And then also you've spent a lot of time now with the NHL, and you've also been in player development with Blackhawks, and you've also, of course, you're a coach with UMD with UMD. What are some of the differences you've noticed between the NCAA game, the NHL game, and how does that translate to today?
Boy, which one should I start with? Let's see, like the differences between the today's game and before's game. Like, there's obviously, I think that's why, I guess we'll start here. Let's say, like, I think there's a reason that there's a lot of college guys playing in the NHL right now. Because I think the pro game is adapted more towards the college game. The college game was always more like just a free skating. There was some hooking and holding, and it's always been physical, but it's, you know, the hooking and holding that's been taken out of the NHL was more of what you saw in college 20 years ago, right? There was a little bit of it, but not so much. So I think the pace of the game, and there's some really good coaching, and kids at like in our league, the NCHC, it's probably as close of a league as there is to the American Hockey League. I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, there's kids at our level, if you play the right teams, that are stepping right in the NHL and contributing. And there's a lot of other kids, and that why I say that a little bit is because there's a lot of older kids in college too. So like young high draft picks sometimes come in and they struggle a little bit. It's just because they're playing against men, right? Like in older kids, 22 to 25-year-old kids that can skate and have learned how to defend and are pretty strong by that point, are really hard to play against, even if they can't score, right? So I think it's a good level for kids that are like Jack Eichel did it, right? He went and played at BU for a year, and he's again like a really hard level, like probably better than playing at the junior level, but not quite to the NHL level, or obviously NHL level, but even probably a step below the AHL. But the fact that they're playing against college or men that is well coached, there's pretty strong systems in place, and physicality part is hard. So I guess that's a little bit the difference. Like it's definitely not as smart. Like the players aren't as smart, so there's a lot more ramminess and running around. They're for the most part well coached, but maybe you're not getting as many like high end elite playmakers that are scoring a ton. You know, that's where it all separates. So the guys that can actually make plays and score goals. So
Right. So Derek, you have a lot of experience in the league. You have a lot of experience in the game. You're a Minnesota guy. You've been a player in the NHL. You've been a coach. You've been a scout. You've been everywhere. You have all the tools to be a mentor. But currently, you're an assistant coach with the University of Minnesota-Duluth, which is kind of like right up your alley. But what are some of the things that you've been able to experience teaching the younger kids coming up into the sport of hockey?
So there's like the college game is a little bit of everything, right? You're kind of like the GM. You're like the coach. You're also like planning golf outings in the summer. So there's a lot of hats to wear in college. And I think the favorite part for me in a lot of ways is trying to find players and trying to build a team. Almost a little bit like the GM. I think that's a fun part for me. And then the two part is like getting on the ice every day with the players and being on the bench. Like that's where I can still get some adrenaline. And like that's a lot of fun. And you know, the player development part was really fun with Chicago. I liked it, worked with some really great players. Sometimes you feel a little bit limited because all those players that you're working with are already on a team and already have 3 or 4 coaches and an agent and a parent and stuff. So you try to help out as much as you can where you can, but you don't get that day to day. Or that's what's kind of nice about being at the college level. I'm out there every day, and if it didn't work on a weekend, I can go back out there the next week and go, hey, it didn't work this weekend, but we're going to keep working on it. And hopefully by the end of the year, you can kind of see some improvement and see them going and growing, and then that's some value for me to watch a kid grow and get better. And then on the bench is just fun because the games are intense, right? There's intensity to them, and you're in it, and you're like, you can't
right.
fake it. So
Yeah. And just to add one more question, because you said you were a scout for the Blackhawks, was there a player that's either on the roster or on the 3 Stanley Cup teams that you thought would just be like, wow, this guy's got a lot of potential to be a star player or an impact player in the NHL, and he just somehow happens to have a good career? Can you name at least one player if you can?
Yeah, well, I can name some players. It's no problem. But like, see, I was only there for 5 years, so that's the little funny thing about like college and like what I was doing, right? So I get those guys kind of before they're there. So, like the Brinkat's a guy that I helped, like, and I'm not going to take claim for how good he is. Like, he was already good before I got to talk to him or play with him. But there's 2 years where I got to kind of follow him around and give him some insight here and there and try to help him get to do the right workouts and, all the little things that go in between. Like, he's obviously carried it to the next level and done it all on his own. But, there's a guy I was lucky enough to work with. And this year's kind of fun because there's a couple more guys like Kurashev's there now and Hagel. These are guys I got to work with for the last few years. So it's always kind of funny. Like the guys back in 15, I was still in college. So it's always takes a couple years before they actually get to where you're kind of going. And so I watch, like, I don't know if you pay attention to Duluth at all, but they've had some good success lately, right? So I think they won, the last 2 national championships, and last year they were pretty high up there. And again, I was with Chicago for 5 years, but the kids that I helped recruit, and of course, nobody recruits by themselves. But some of the guys that I helped recruit were the guys that helped win those national championships. So that was kind of fun, even though I wasn't part of Duluth at that time. It's fun to watch those kids that you spend some time with, help try to get to Duluth, meet their parents, do all that stuff, to see them kind of come to fruition and actually get to where you kind of hope that they could. So
that's awesome.
I thought there's a lot of value in seeing kids succeed when you had at an early age that, like, I think that kid could be really good, and you try to help them out and see them succeed is super satisfying for sure.
Absolutely. That's awesome though. That really is.
Okay, so I'm gonna come here and be like the resident Leafs fan, and I'm gonna come at you with a couple Leafs questions, guys.
Sweet.
Oh God, here we go.
Man, come on.
Yeah, here we go. I have to, because my next question was more based on the NCAA, but
Yeah.
you already covered all of that, and I'm pretty sure
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying, like, you said everything that needed to be said. So I'm gonna come at you with a couple of Leafs questions. So in your tenure in the NHL as a Buffalo Sabre, as the Chicago Blackhawk, as a Flyer, who was the toughest Leaf to play against in your tenure?
Oh boy, the Leafs had some tough. Like I had to play against Matt Sundin. Like, you wouldn't think he's tough, but for me, like, I played some of the defensive matchups, and him being a 6'4" guy, that was pretty good. That was a hard matchup for me just because he could overpower me a lot of times. So I had to be like smart about it and pick spots to kind of defend him. But who did they have? They had Baumgartner, I think, for a while at that time. Ty Domi was, I think, there.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. He was in Winnipeg at same, like, he was in that transition between Winnipeg and Toronto. And who was that? I'm trying to think of another guy. It was pretty tough or at least it's hard to play against. Like Clark.
Clark Gillies.
No, not Clark Gillies. Wendell Clark. Wendell Clark might have been towards the end of it when I first started. So he still had some back issues and stuff, but he was obviously a guy you had to keep your head up around, because he would you could knock you right the next week if you didn't have your head up. So those are some hard players I've ever as Leafs to play against.
Yeah. Okay, so my second part to this question is, okay, and this is it's the debate for the last between me and Bobby anyways.
Hey,
Oh, God,
easy,
here we go.
easy. Take it easy.
No, the debate is who's better out of two players. Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel.
Oh boy. I don't know. That's
Better
a tough one. They're both, they're pretty equal. Like, I'm lucky that I got to see those guys at a very young age. I remember watching Matthews when he played in Phoenix. I'm trying to think of the name they played for, but right before he went to the development program, and we tried to get some calls in to try to recruit him as a player, because he wasn't as dominant then. Like, he was just a really good player. Jack Eichel, the first time I saw him, I walked in the rink and I'm like, it was in Buffalo because he played at the Select 16s maybe. And I was just like, I was sitting next to Dave Haxtell, who's a Leaf guy since, but is coach at North Dakota. And I'm just like, oh, look at that. Like everybody in the building, like, oh, that's just Jack. Like he has been phenomenal since he was since he was born, right? Like I don't think Austin Matthews was like, he was always a really good player, but he wasn't phenomenal until he got a little bit older. And now he just keeps getting better and better. So, I mean, Matthews is probably silly, like this is no new news, but he's a better goal scorer. Right, Eichel's maybe a better at carrying the puck from one to the other and distributing. Maybe I don't know. Eichel does some things on nights when I watch, and you probably see it too. That's like wow.
Yeah, I mean, here's the way I see it. Like Austin Matthews, like he has an established line. Jack Eichel's line gets changed every single night. And the Leafs, I mean, Adam, come on, they're first in the league. They obviously have more weapons.
Here we go.
They obviously have more weapons.
Not gonna argue with you. Nope.
But Jack Eichel, I mean, seriously, I've been hearing all these things about trading Eichel. You trade Eichel to any team, they are automatically Stanley Cup contenders just because Eichel's that good. So it's kind of hard to compare.
I know. I hope they don't trade Eichel. I just think he's too fun to watch. And like,
Me neither.
as soon as you get rid of Eichel, you're gonna be looking for a new Eichel. Right?
I mean, I remember seeing him in the rookie scrimmages and when they had that open up here at the Harbor Center. And my first look at him, I was like, oh my God. I mean, this is
the combine.
You want to build around
the combine.
I mean, there was no question. You want to build around him and get him a good supporting cast that he can work with. And just seeing some of the skill he had on the ice was just absolutely amazing.
Both those guys, though, like to a night, like I watch enough games, and every game I'll be like, oh, did you see that? I feel like I've seen a lot of hockey. Like you said, I've seen every hockey there is, and sometimes I just go, Patty Kane's the other guy sometimes, and these guys are unbelievable. It's just they do stuff that you're like, oh, did you see that? Like you just shouldn't be able to do that in an NHL hockey game, and they both do it on a nightly basis.
One of my favorite Eichel goals of all time was his rookie year. My dad and I were at this game. We used to have season tickets, and it was against Carolina. With a second left on the clock, he just puts it right through Cam Ward's 5-hole. It was just a little flick of the backhand. He put it in like he does that all the time during practice. It was almost like he was dumping it in the empty net with a second left, and he almost hit the referee into the corner. Had to like kind of hold him a little bit to make sure he didn't fall down. But that was one of my favorite goals. That was from his rookie season.
Yeah, he's just getting better and better too. So who knows where his limit is? Maybe he doesn't have a limit.
Right.
Hopefully not.
Even his rookie season, I still remember that one of the plays he had against Columbus when he ended up going basically coast to coast on the ice. And the way he handled the defense on that play was just absolutely something that you don't see very often.
He knew exactly where the defense was going to go.
Yeah.
He put him there.
Take him out.
He seems so strong on his stick. Like he wins almost every puck battle he gets in. Right? So explosive.
So I take it the Jack Eichel Matthews debate's still up in the air, I guess.
Yeah, it's still up in the air. Like in Matthews too, I've been impressed at how Matthews has scored goals so many different ways. Like he's not just sitting over there shooting one-timers like Ovechkin or whatnot. Like he's getting from all different angles, and he's amazing.
Right. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby debate. I mean, that's one that we'll still have probably even after when the two of them decide to call it a career. And
Ovechkin
is better. Ovechkin is definitely better.
Oh boy.
Although, I mean, I have seen Sidney Crosby play in person before too. I mean, I've actually watched some games live in Pittsburgh and actually almost ended up living down there at one point. But I mean, just the one thing I remember is being in the old Igloo, and that place was very interesting to actually catch a game. And then
what a play!
And then after they moved over to the current building, I mean, same thing. Just I remember actually, a quick story is that I remember the first time I ever saw a game in the Igloo, and it was Sidney Crosby, and it was Ali Mata's first season. I remember watching Ali Mata get his first goal, which was really cool to see. I mean, I love a lot of what he's done, and the way he's come back after he had some health issues is great. And then I remember actually seeing Sidney Crosby drop the gloves at that time, which never happened.
Yeah, right.
That never happened. It was the game he played against Minnesota. So he was playing the Wild, and then the second time I had seen him in Pittsburgh was when they played the Canucks and ended up being an overtime win. But I mean, still to watch him drop the gloves, I'm like, that never happens. I mean, literally at the time, I mean, you had Bugard on the Wild who could handle all that. It wasn't anything there, but it just ended up being a hard hit in the corner, and he decided to go ahead and take care of it. So I mean, it's something you don't see often, but that's one of the things that stood out.
That's
Did he
crazy.
get Did he get knocked? Did he get knocked out, Crosby?
Oh no.
He actually had a pretty decent scrap. I mean, it wasn't one-sided.
No,
It
no,
really
it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was like a chick fight.
Oh man.
Laughing each other, the gloves fell off, and they're like, "Oh God, okay, we better stop now."
So Trevor, before we have you talk about Team USA, we did get a couple of things in. So our resident Boston Bruins fan, Katie, ended up joining us in the chat also live here. And so of course she says hi, definitely loves what you did during your playing days. And
Boston stinks.
no, she actually did this. Terriers are better than the Eagles. So she had to make her point on that. And then she also said, let's go Buffalo. So Trevor, you're next up. You want to talk about Team USA a bit?
So definitely Team USA. So Derek, you had the opportunity and you got to skate with Team USA. Can you tell us like all about your time with the team and some like awesome experiences that you'll cherish forever?
Yeah. So I got to play in I think six tournaments, overseas tournaments, the men's nationals. So yeah, like I think the first two were probably the most memorable because I was still in college for the first one. First one I was a junior in college and I got a chance to go over there and Gary Suter was on the team and just a bunch of guys that I thought were kind of legendary. It was pretty cool and just to be in that group and get to go over there. And then the next year I got to play, it's kind of funny. I thought about this guy was in college, but Mike Madonna was on the team and he had to be my roommate there. That was a pretty awesome experience and just get to play with some guys like that and Amante and some just great Americans. So I got to meet a bunch of really good players. I think the first one was in Czechoslovakia at the time. So, a kid from Minnesota, never really been overseas. So that was the first time I'd ever got to go over there and we got to go to, at that point it was Czechoslovakia and half the tournament was in the what is now the Czech Republic and at that time was Slovakia. So it was just, again, like being an experience, but getting to see the Prague was the big city that we were in and just going on the tunnels and just seeing the European way and being in Czechoslovakia was pretty, like, I still remember it in my mind. Yeah, I don't know if I can explain it the way it was, but it was a lot of fun. And, we got to play, I got to play in a couple that were in Germany, which was a lot of fun. We did the one and I think we did it in Austria. We played in maybe, I don't know, remember what year, maybe 02. It all kind of jumbles together after a while. Like you get hit in the head a few times. But that was the first time I think the U.S. had medaled in that tournament in like 35 years.
Nice.
So that was pretty fun. I mean, we only got a bronze, but it was a big deal to us, and it was a big deal to USA Hockey. And obviously it was a fun time. We beat the Russians. And we lost to Canada. Paul Kariya had a hat trick against us, so that wasn't too much fun. Like I still have bad memories of Paul Kariya. That's what the fans were saying. They're all cheering for him. But
It's just Paul Kariya doing Paul Kariya things back in 2K2. That's all.
yeah,
he
right.
did.
It was somewhere around that. It might have been 2001. I don't remember, but he was awesome. He was a good player. But the other fun was that when we got back home, they actually flew us all out to Colorado Springs, and we went to a Colorado Rockies game, and just made us feel like we were special, even though we only had a bronze. But it was a pretty cool deal, and it was fun to get back with those guys because you don't get to, you just don't get to know those guys very well because they're not necessarily on your teams. But we come together for 3 weeks over in Europe, and so it's a lot of fun that way to get to meet new players and hang out with them. And I got to play in a couple of Deutschland Cups. I guess the one fun one was my first really experience with USA Hockey was playing in the World Juniors, which at that time was a big deal, but not like it is now. Like now it's through the roof. Like obviously some of my favorite hockey to watch now is just watching those young players because still the best players at their age level are there for the most part, minus a few guys that are in the NHL. But I just think it's great hockey. And we played in Saskatoon that year and lost to I think we lost to Canada in overtime, or maybe they just went with tie. We tied them, and they ended up winning the gold. And they beat the Russians. The Russians were this is kind of a cool story. And in my, I sat next to Trent Klatt on the bench. We played the Russian team, and everybody had heard about this unbelievable Russian, right? And we didn't know who his name was or who it was. And so I sit next to like Craig Johnson, who ended up playing quite a bit in LA and St. Louis, and Trent Klatt, who played a lot in Minnesota, and some really good players. Like we had some good players on our team, and I were like, we heard this Russian's really good. And so we're sitting on the bench watching, and all of a sudden they won the puck back, and it goes back to their D, and they go D to D, and this guy kind of winds up, and they give him the puck, and he just goes right through. Like we're like, holy shnikes! And then like by the end of the game, obviously we figured out who it was. It was Pavel Bure.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Like we didn't know at that time because he was the same age as us, but we didn't know the Russians. Like there wasn't all this media where we knew who everybody was, right?
The Russian Rocket.
Yeah, the Russian Rocket showed us why he was a Russian Rocket.
His own right.
He had his ankles taped up from like almost from his knees down to his ankles, and he had the plastic skates on. We're like, oh, look at that bender for a second, and then also he just flew through everybody and went and scored. And we're like, holy man, yeah, he was legit.
Yeah, I love Pavel Bure when he was playing.
Well, we played against Canada, who had, you know, I think they won the gold medal, but Lindros was on that team, and Brad May, and you know they had a bunch of good first round picks on that team back then too. So
I still
Dougie
don't know how that.
Dougie Way was our leading scorer that year. I think he led the tournament in scoring and still has some of the records. He was pretty awesome. He had a great tournament. Keith Kachuk was on that tournament team, so it's kind of fun to get to know him and all those some pretty cool names that now like, oh wow, they were pretty good. You didn't know at the time, right?
I don't know how that Vancouver team with Bure and Linden is. I still to this day never won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, well, I know it's you just realize how hard it is to win the Stanley Cup. You can have a great team and just not win because there's another great team at the same time. We're just bad bounce. But
I tell everybody it's the hardest accomplishment in all of sports. Change my mind. Just change my mind.
yeah, it'd be hard to with the 7-game series and everything. Like it's a job of attrition and the fact that you got to be good and you just have to be able to fight through stuff.
Right.
NFL, you need a good quarterback and a good defense, and you win. But the Stanley Cup, you need a complete team.
Right, and then maybe you don't win sometimes.
Yeah.
The other team.
Right, or especially like one of the games I remember. Yeah, one of the games I remember was still when we went to the 4 overtimes and Howard Chuck finally ended up getting us that goal back at that time, and I still remember the old odd and I remember my first ever game when I ended up getting to watch it as a kid in the odd and just. Now, of course, I mean, it's been torn down for over 10 years, but still, like, that place was something special. It really was.
It was. I was lucky to get to play there when I got here. I think I played there 2 years. So I got here 93, 94, 94, 95.
Yeah.
So 3 years. I played there 3 years because we moved into the new rink at the time, and it was like 96, 97, I think. So
Yeah.
I was lucky. It was getting pretty not so good by the end. I think they kind of stopped taking care of it the last year. Like there was one spot on the blue line that never really froze the whole year. Like it was always kind of like half melted.
Oh, geez.
So one of the pipes might not have been quite right. Like it was frozen enough, but it would always be a little bit softer by the end of the game.
Oh,
So,
yep. I mean, so many good memories in that building too. I mean, I still miss that place a lot.
That place was awesome. It had a great atmosphere, and it was just just because it's legendary. The fact that it was smaller too was kind of weird because you didn't have like that in Boston Garden. They were just noticeably smaller than every other rink.
Right, yeah, it wasn't the full 200 feet.
Yeah, right. So
And then literally with the way that the odd was set up, I still remember like a lot of times even in the upper deck where it's literally overhanging so close. And then it's like the sightline was perfect. I mean, literally.
your seats on the rink.
Everybody called it the claustrophobic atmosphere of the auditorium. That's
Right, where you feel like you'd be falling down when you're walking down from the deck and all of that. And I mean, that building was special. I mean, that's always going to hold a really nice place for me. And
Yeah.
Derek, were you playing in that game? I think it was against Philly, maybe 1995 or 6, when Matt Barnaby was beating the crap out of Garth Snow.
Yeah, that's the one my boys punch up on YouTube every chance they see a new friend. They bring it up. Yeah, look at this. I actually was on the ice when that happened, so I was picking up gloves the whole time, just trying not to get killed.
I was going to ask you, were you scrapping?
I didn't scrap. Like I got a couple excuses, but to be honest, I probably never would have scrapped anyway. But like the whole time I either had Brad May or Matthew Barnaby on my wings, and like they're always just looking for the time to fight.
Yeah.
So like anybody would touch me, which I feel blessed that I got to play with those guys. They'd automatically fight them just because they wanted to fight all the time, and they just gave them a reason. So they were awesome that way, and they gave me a lot of room to maneuver around in. But no, I never got in a fight. I went to. I almost got in a fight twice. One with Stu Barnes. I don't remember him. And we both were better, like similar players, right? He was in Florida at the time, and we both kind of like were getting ready to that, and then we kind of looked at each other like, "Who we kidding?" Like, oh, this ain't happening. So,
You were just being nice at that time.
I almost got in Kevin Deneen. I almost got in a fight with, but then all of a sudden Brad May came in and just mopped him up. So never happened.
May could definitely throw him.
Oh my gosh, he is a legit heavyweight. Like if his shoulders started popping out on him, so they kind of put the ban on him from fighting. But he was tough, man.
He could throw down.
He could knock people out. I seen him one punch a few guys.
He could
Probably
probably
the wall. I think it was Baumgartner in Toronto. Like this might be one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, so it was like maybe my first year, maybe my second year, 94. So Baumgartner, he was a defenseman at the time, and somebody had hit Patty LaFontaine earlier in the game. And so I'm going on a rush. I think we might have even been on a 3-on-2. Brad May's got the puck coming on the left wing, and I'm going through the middle, right? This is in Toronto. And all of a sudden, Brad May drops his gloves, has the puck on, drops gloves, takes a step, and pops him right in the head. Like, I don't know if he knocked him out, but he knocked him right in his back. He slid from the blue line all the way to the end boards. It was like the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, did that just happen? Like, it was all in one motion. Like, he was stick handling 1 second, and he was punching the guy in the head in the next second. Knocked him right out. Well, I don't know if he knocked him out, but he knocked him right over, and it was like, holy God.
Yeah, it must have been easy for him because he was facing against the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Right, Adam? The Leafs are soft.
Probably somewhere in the corner, I guess.
He's muted. He can't even hear me chirping him over there.
Although,
No. Okay. I'll say this. It's, you know what? I'm a Leafs fan. That's enough insult. Okay. That's enough.
That's like the first insult I've given you tonight. Come on.
No, I'm not gonna respond. I'm not gonna respond.
although there were at least 7 rounds of Ty Domi versus Rob Ray back in the day too. So I mean,
Yeah.
we had those going on, and
I still think the best fights to this day were Bob Probert and Domi.
Yeah,
Robert was a tough guy.
he was. They both tough guys.
Yeah.
I remember
By Alan Ray. When Ray wants to
Rob Ray was. I got a good story. Domi in Winnipeg. He was fighting Rob Ray one day. It was right next to the bench. So like Brad May's like punching, Rob Ray's kind of punching him, right? But he's not getting like all the way to his head because you know how they grab the arm and the sleeve and whatnot.
Yeah.
He was kind of like hitting him in the head, but he just leaned over on the bench and he's like looking at us going, is this all he's got? Like
That's Domi. That's Domi.
Like he's literally in the fight getting punched and like, I don't know. He had some thick skin. I think he got some punches that never would get cut. Like he was a tough bugger.
No, I met Domi in person personally, and I was just like, my God, that guy is literally built like a brick shithouse.
Yeah.
He's not as small as he looks on TV.
No. Yeah, he was tough. He was legit.
Yeah.
No wonder Bob Probert couldn't beat him down, man. Look, I seen the videos of Bob Probert like literally smashing Domi in the back of the head and fucking just beating him up. And Domi's just smiling at him as he's bleeding everywhere. I'm just like, okay, well, he's a little bit of a psychopath, yeah.
That's why you see like today's NHL players poking at his son, poking at Max Domi, seeing if he has the same temper as his dad. Maybe if you knock him out, get him out of the game.
I think he has the same temperament, but he doesn't have the same, get punched in the face 20 times and still laugh about it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, Max Domi offensively, I think is a step above though.
Superstar.
For sure.
Well, yeah, Domi's always had that there though, but at the same time, he's always been more inclined to fight and hit, and That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man! So we did have a couple things for our fans too. So one of our fans who actually wrote in, and his name's Andy. He actually mentioned one time he had a chance to meet you and Brian Holzinger at a movie theater in Amherst, New York once. So he thought the two of you were really cool to meet.
AMC
And,
was the AMC.
he didn't mention which one it was, but he did mention that it did happen back at the time. And then his question to you actually was. During the time, do you still keep in touch with anyone from the Sabres during that time, or who did you tend to be friends with, do stuff with?
Yeah, Brian was definitely a guy I hung out with quite a bit when we were there. We became pretty good friends. I communicate with him every once in a while. We all kind of go our own ways. I think like a lot of guys, we just kind of go do our thing, and then when we come together again, we're like we never missed a beat. So it's pretty cool to see guys. I've come back for the Sabre alumni golf outing 4 or 5 times in the last 6-7 years, so it's so awesome to come back and just see guys that I got to play with and hang out for a night or two and see the people and be around the area. So I see guys on the road. I know I see Donald Audette. It's kind of funny enough. I see him once in a while on a trip because he scouts with the Montreal Canadiens. So in the last few years, I've seen him at least once or twice a year. It's kind of cool to see him on the road once in a while. And then the other guys that are working in Buffalo that are around most of the time, I get to see them once in a while when I come back there. But I don't know that everybody really connects with each other all the time, but whenever we're together, it's like old times. It's pretty fun.
Awesome.
Definitely.
And he did mention it was the AMC, so that settles that question.
I'm glad to say because I go there all the time. It's right across from Taco Bell. Whenever I go see a movie in Buffalo, I'm always going to the AMC. They got those reclining chairs.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they had reclining chairs back then, maybe, but I know it was pretty cool. We used to watch a lot of movies because we didn't have kids. Now we all have kids, we're busy.
Yeah, father time catches up on everybody.
Yep.
Definitely. Another fan asked Derek was, aside from the whole Toronto Maple Leafs thing that Adam wanted to address on the show about Matt Sundin, whatever, but one fan asked, who was the hardest player that you ever faced against that's not on the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Oh, there's just probably one from every team that's hard. It was a hard league, right? So far.
Fair enough.
I didn't like playing against Lindros. I would say that. I didn't mind playing against him because I could kind of contain him, saying that lightly, only because I could skate. I could skate and get in his way a lot. But if I hated it, it seemed like we'd take face-offs against each other all the time. And then if I won, maybe 50-50, I'm not saying that was great. I don't know, whatever the percentage was, but whenever I would win, he would two-hand me across the wrist. And they never called it once. I used to get so mad. I just hated that because here he is. He's 6'5". He's still a foot taller than me, and he's 60 pounds heavier than me. And then he gets to slash me every time I beat it, and they never called it. So I always hated that.
I be the guy that tries to target Eric Lindros. I never liked him.
Yeah, I could target him all I want. He's just he was way bigger and better. So I don't know if it would have done any good. I just had to try to get in his way.
Him and his super long tenure with the Quebec Nordiques. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I missed that rivalry against them in Montreal.
Those fans in Quebec would throw pacifiers on the ice at him. That was so funny.
He was a Leaf too, by the way. He was a Leaf at one point.
He's a Leafs legend.
I remember him as a Dallas Star when I first started watching hockey, and everyone's my dad was we don't like him. I'm okay, I don't like him.
That's set the tone.
Okay, Dad. Okay.
Our family does not like him. Okay.
Yeah, I always remembered it when I was a little younger when he was on the Rangers, and that whole experiment didn't work out for him.
Yeah, he was good.
For sure.
So I'll ask you a relative question. So what was it like back in 1996, 1997 when you scored that dribbler off Ron Tugnut's glove?
Hey, they don't ask how, they ask how many, right?
No, that's what I mean. That's good.
That's all I know is it went in and we were still fired up. I think what's most fun about that goal, obviously it's fun to score a Game 7 goal. No question. That's the pinnacle we talk about all the time. But I think what was fun about that scoring that goal was that was a kind of a group of young players. That's the group that kind of ended up going to the Stanley Cup. Most of those guys, that was kind of the beginning of that, I think. And like we kind of bonded, and Ted Nolan was our coach, and he was like all about like team and like being the hardest working team in NHL, right? So it was kind of like we bonded that way, and that's like getting past that round with that team was just kind of like, oh, we did it! Like we were like not only surprised, but it was just like so awesome. And I think that for me, it was a lot of fun to like it just built from there. Like that gave us a lot of enthusiasm the next year and got a little bit better. I think we got the conference final against Washington. And then the year later, that's when we went to the Stanley Cup. So.
Where were you going for a change when you made that shot?
That's what I've heard.
No, well, I don't know where I was going. I think it was, I don't know. Not when I was going for the goal. I took a big slapper. Right back in the day, we took slappers.
That's what I mean. I was like, it's a slap shot.
Yeah.
You're slapping it in to go in deep, or go to the bench, or you're slapping it on the goal.
No, I was shooting to score. I tried to shoot it right off his heels. I'm not saying I thought I was going to go in, but it's worth the try, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I was going for a change. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I mean.
Maybe I was.
That's what I mean. Because like I played AAA, so my coach always taught me that when you're going for a change, if you're at the top of the circle, you let it rip, and then like wherever it goes, it goes. Get it deep.
I don't know. I think because I was going full speed, I just started shooting as hard as I could on net. Let's see what happens.
And if you listen to the two broadcasts from that goal, whether it's the ESPN one or RJ's, RJ was just anticipating something good happening when you brought it in. He's like, Derek Plante's got the puck, he shoots, and then he went insane. And then the ESPN's like, Derek Plante pulls over the blue line, shoots, he scores! Like, they weren't like even like anticipating anything. But just like the whole celebration after that, I've seen the clip a bunch of times. They're all celebrating without you. Then you finally just jump in because they're on the other side of the ice. You're hustling back there to get back there. And you just jump right into the fray.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all blurred now. It was just so much fun. I think because we were all so young, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were just like so excited.
Right. Well, actually, it's interesting you mentioned that, Trevor, because in the real-time chat we've got going on, so Andy, who mentioned the AMC, he actually mentioned the RJ call was great. And actually, one of the things that we're able to do on here is we actually do have a little bit of a clip that we can actually show from that. So here it is for everyone that wants to take a look at it.
We got permission from the league. We can show this.
This is not affiliated with any tell in any way, shape, or form.
That's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that looks like PNC Park somewhere over there.
Great moments.
Yeah. So that was just one of those things where literally just a lot of fun to see when it happened, and of course same thing. Great goal. It was perfect time on it.
Yeah. I didn't get to see it. I don't know if it didn't come up.
Yeah, we could. Tom, we
Okay, Bob.
see it.
Come on, Tom. Bring this
We
shit
didn't get
up.
to see it.
Bring that shit up.
Let me see if I could get it back on here.
I see your screensaver.
Yeah.
I see a bridge.
I used to see a
okay.
bridge too, so
All right.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out where Heinz Field was, where PNC Park was, while you were trying to show us.
PNC Park.
I might have shown the wrong screen then, but
That's a nice picture, by the way.
yeah, that's actually no, I remember that one. That was actually when I ended up going down there. What happened is I actually almost lived right downtown there, so that part wasn't too bad. I'll bring it back up in a few, just this way we can get that going again, because for some reason I'm just trying to.
We need to see this. We need to see
Oh
this.
boy.
Yeah, we got Heinz to the left, I think, PNC to the right, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where my bearings are here. I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, I have too. I think I've driven across that bridge, but I can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because let me actually, you know what? I think I know what it might be. It's kind of weird because it's like the way I have everything set up in here, I literally have like 3 screens off this
I
computer.
would say turn off screen share and then go back into it and have it show your Chrome screen.
Right. Well, that's what I'm trying to do on here too, because literally with how this one is set up right now. For some reason, it's just not doing what I wanted to do. So
There's your questions.
Those are
Yeah.
Questions. Yep.
yeah, so we've got that. But
Tom, are you sure you're not drunk?
no,
Hey, put the bottle down, Tom.
I haven't had anything. I got a bottle of water. So
Is that vodka though?
I'll work on bringing that back up in just a few moments. But really, the next thing that we wanted to talk about is you did have some time with several teams, of course, as we talked about. You were originally drafted by Buffalo, then you did play with the Flyers, the Stars, and you also got to spend time with the Blackhawks. Did you have any preference on what team you enjoyed your time the most with, or do you think they were pretty equal?
Well, I mean, I spent the most time in Buffalo, so like that's probably I feel the most attachment there, and had probably most of my feelings there, I guess, like if that's anything. I mean, I mean, the time in Dallas, just because we won the Stanley Cup, even though it was against Buffalo, kind of weird. I mean, that was obviously a fun experience. You only get to win the Stanley Cup so many times. Philly was great, although I always hated Philly before I played there, but they treated me great, and it was just a great experience. So I think all the teams are pretty cool. I think the Chicago at the time was in a weird way. We played in the United Center with like 7,000 fans. It's like 23,000. So wow, it was kind of a dark time. And when I got traded there, they were already out of the playoffs. I was only there like the half year. Chicago was one of the best cities for sure. So playing there now would have been unbelievable. But at the time, it wasn't as much fun just because we weren't a very good team that year. So.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say probably my most memories are come from Buffalo for sure.
I got a question for you, Mr. Plant. We have like 9 injured players in Toronto right now. You want to suit up?
I would love to suit up. It would be so fun. I could probably make it through like one shift before I got hurt. But
I could literally put you up with Matthews and Marner.
oh my gosh, how fun would that be? I could just give it to those guys and get to the net. I might be able to score.
Exactly. Like we're down like 8 players plus.
I think I need like 4 or 5 to get to 100. Maybe I should come back and just try it. Right?
I'd rather cut off one of my toes than play for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, you almost said Montreal Canadiens. You almost said that.
Yeah, I almost said it, but I didn't say it.
You know what? That's enough said right there.
Yeah.
Funny.
Well, there's a thing we can agree on, Adam. No Montreal.
Boo. Boo Montreal.
No, I don't. You know what? That's something we can agree on. But still, like PTO for Derek Plante.
There you go. All right, guys. I think we got it.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. So the only downside with this clip is that actually, yeah, we should be good.
It's on CBC. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was weird. I wasn't able to get like an actual good copy of the Buffalo clip yet, but I still did want to play it.
I saw my dad's boy, Jeff Sanderson.
I miss Jeff Sanderson, man. I also miss Derek too, so that's for sure.
Here we go.
Here he goes.
Oh,
There we go.
yeah.
Look at how great.
My dad bouncing up and down on the bench.
Oh, Tugger.
Back when they used to have the Buffalo logo actually like shoot smoke out the score.
That's pretty cool.
How many times did they blast that horn? Like 20?
Oh yeah, they let it go for a while.
Man.
It was very well deserved too.
I know some of these guys now. That's
Tugger.
perfect there.
Talk not is just like, yeah, you know what? Shit happens.
Look at that crowd. That's pretty cool.
Dude, I missed
I'm
that.
usually hoping we get back to that point where we can have the crowds in the building soon because I mean I can tell you it's a year without I just miss it.
And there he goes.
Sweet goal.
Screw this. I'm just gonna take a shot. Why not? Boom, goes in. Series over.
Yeah.
Why not? Overtime, right?
The worst that could happen is it gets blocked, right?
Right?
Every shot's a good shot in overtime.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah, back with back in the day too. I mean, that Jason Daw. I mean, that was a really nice team there back in the time.
Derek, I bet you that you still keep him up at night with that goal. I guarantee that you still give him nightmares.
Yeah.
All the
Tugger? Yeah,
probably
maybe.
have PTSD.
I doubt it. You probably forgot about it a long time ago.
I know Ron Tugnutt had a great career. He had a great career. So yeah,
He did.
that probably kept him up at night for sure, but I don't think
Was that
he's
when
like-
Ottawa was an expansion team? Was that the year where they got an expansion team?
It wasn't that year, but it was only a few years later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was like 2-3 years later.
I remember playing against them my first year in the league, so I was like 93, 94. So that's like their third or fourth year probably.
Yeah, it was like 3-4 years in.
Yeah. I bet you Senators fans probably have PTSD when they see your goal.
I do hear that once in a while. They still remember it.
You can only hope. You can only hope.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question. One more question for you. Do you have any suggestions to how the Sabres can be better right now?
I don't know. I think they're on the right track. I just watched their team, and I think they're not that far off. It's just they got to get some breaks and get some continuity, probably.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, they got some really good players. They got some dynamic players, and they can keep building on that. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah,
kind of fun.
I agree. I agree with you. At the same time, I don't think you should put Skinner on the scratch line or
Yes.
fourth line.
Oh my God. So
I haven't taken
infuriating.
that. Gotta throw him and Eichel together. But then you have Taylor Hall. I mean, you have some really good
Dude,
playmakers.
I'm literally sorry. I'm sorry, but like you can't put a guy like that on a fourth line and not the money you're paying the guy. Like, please put him up.
Hey, but Jacob Bryson's a freaking machine. Did you see him last night?
One game, calm down.
Jacob Bryson. I've seen more heart from Jacob Bryson than half the freaking roster this year. That's all I gotta say. From that one game he played, I've seen more heart from him than half the freaking team.
Fair enough.
I think Skinner should be put up to the second line at least.
No, here's the simple
Fellas,
solution.
I think I got to hit the road. I'd love to stay and chat longer, but
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is absolutely, we appreciate you being on, and
awesome.
it was a fun hour to have with you.
Yes,
And
sir.
it was great to hear a little bit about the game back when you were with us as Sabres, and also to hear about your current coaching as well. And absolutely, we'd love to have you back and talk more anytime.
Sure, give me a shout some other time. Send me in, I'll do it again for sure.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you very much.
for
We
your
appreciate
time,
it.
man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, good night.
All right, guys. So that is Derek Plante, former Buffalo Sabre center, also coach of University of Minnesota at Duluth, associate coach. Hell of a guy to have on the show. Absolutely loved having him on. So
Oh, absolutely. He was great, actually. I'm actually surprised.
yeah, a lot of fun stories. I mean, and absolutely, we'd love to have him back on, and we'll definitely try to do it again, and not so distant future. So
Here's what I've noticed though, interviewing these players, like everyone wants to interview the Crosbys, the Ovechkins. It's the lesser known players that have the best stories. Talk to
Right.
JP Dumont, talk to Jay McKee, talk to
right, like
anybody.
Jason Daw or Derek
They
Plante,
have the best stories. They have the best stories.
absolutely, and
They do.
they're some of the most fun people to talk with also. And I have to say, I mean, absolutely love talking with Derek tonight. So
No, he was great. He was great. He was a great guy.
I was gonna say, and for us to be a first podcast for him, I'm kind of surprised that, but it's an honor for us to be the first.